it is a great pleasure and privilege for me to, welcome all of you on board. And on behalf of my entire organizing committee, I extend this warm welcome to all the guest faculties from overseas and also from my own country, all the oncology professionals and fellows for this signature event, the 8th National Society of Medical and Pediatric Oncology Congress. So, building on the success of prior meetings, the theme of 2022 is devised in a manner that we are having on two successive weekends, two themes working. The first is rare tumor and rare situations in common cancers, and the second one is switching therapies. So, today we are beginning the brainstorming sessions on the theme rare tumors and rare situations. And the true leaders in the field who are joining us in cyberspace, I'm really looking forward to learning the latest evidence on these challenging topics where we really lack high quality guidelines. So I wish and I extend this warm welcome to all of you that come and enjoy the research, the immense collaboration opportunities in the virtual city of Mumbai. So without taking much time, now I'll hand over the mic to again Amay, the master of ceremony, to invite the esteemed chairpersons for the next session.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. So I would like to invite Dr. P.P. Bapsi, Senior Consultant and Head, Department of Oncology, Apollo Hospital, Bangalore, and Dr. Purna Kurkure, Head of Pediatric Oncology and BMT-NH, SRCC, Mumbai, to invite the speakers. Over to you, chairpersons.
I'm Dr. Purna Kurkure, and on behalf of me and my co-chairperson, Dr. Bapsi, I invite Dr. Pilar Garrido, who is Women for Oncology Committee Chair in the ESMO, Associate Professor of Medical Oncology, Universidad de Alcalá from Madrid, Spain. And she is going to talk on gender imbalances in oncology and solution at global level. And as a woman, as a woman in this field for last more than 40 years, I have seen the evolution of oncology and also the participation of women in this field, involvement of the women in field. The youngest and the classical example is Dr. Jyoti Bajpai, and the oldest is me and Dr. Bapsi, who are here as a chairperson to share with you how we feel about the gender imbalances in oncology. I think gender imbalances are not, it is in your mind, if you ask me. More than, there is no scientific basis for this. But if you are in a field like oncology, which is ever evolving, and if you are ready to change with the times and not get stuck where you are, I think it is any gender which can take off in oncology. I would ask Dr. Bapsi to add on to that, and then ask the presenter to dwell on this topic further. Dr. Bapsi, please.
I totally agree with Dr. Purna, because when I joined General Medicine MD in 75, there were no women in that group. Again, when I took up medical oncology in 1979, and again, we had Dr. Shanta, who was doing everything multidisciplinary. Dr. Kochipillai was there, I think, in 85. So we started as early as a lecturer and we grew up. I also totally agree with Dr. Purna that I don't think so there is a gender imbalance as such. If we are prepared to work like our other colleagues of the other gender, probably we all grew up, and I retired as the head of the department of a regional cancer center and the director of cancer center, even though I was from a different state. So how other countries are having this gender imbalance, let's hear from Dr. Pilar, because she is the person for women for oncology in committee chair. So with these few words, I think I would request Dr. Pilar Garrido. She looks very young to me, and she's holding such good posts. When I look at her CV, she's having such very important posts, and she is an advisor to the Ministry of Health Advisory Council. That itself shows that she has grown up very well in spite of all the men around. So over to Dr. Pilar Garrido.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Bakpai for giving me the opportunity to participate in this interesting meeting, and in particular in the Gender Gap in Oncology session. My name is Pilar Garrido. I am a medical oncologist at Ramón y Cajal Hospital in Madrid, and currently I am the chair of the ESMO Women for Oncology Committee. This is my declaration of interest slide, and here you can see our missions as the current member of our committee. Our mission is to raise awareness and to promote equal access to career development opportunities for women oncologists, but also for us is quite relevant to provide a platform for networking, not only among women oncologists, also among men and women oncologists, and in particular among national groups devoted to gender gap in oncology. Our committee has two different subsets. One is the core committee, and as you can see in the picture, Dr. Jyoti Bakpai is one of our members in this core committee. But we also have an extended member committee, meaning that these members are participating in a different way. In this extended committee, we have our former ESMO president, Dr. Cavernero, of course, our current president, Dr. Solange Peter, that, as you well know, is one of the the most relevant person in the gender gap area, and also some of the awardees of the ESMO Women for Oncology Awards, such as Dr. Philippe. Depending on the part of the committee you are involved, is the task you have to perform. We know that almost 70% of workers in the health and social sector are women. We also know that female health workers are paid approximately 28% less than male. So we need gender transformative policies, not only in terms of eliminating discrimination in earning that is relevant, but also because we need to remove barriers to access full-time employment. And at least from my point of view, we need to support, to push, to guarantee access to professional development. And in particular, we need leadership role, females with leadership roles. One of the activities in which our committee has been more involved is in monitoring some data, some numbers. For instance, in this slide, we can see the proportion, the percentage of women that participated at oncology congresses, national or international oncology congresses, as invited speakers. To have this information, we collect every year data coming from the National Society. It means that every year we send a survey to collect this information. And here you can see the data from 2014 until 2020. And as you can see, is a slight improvement in terms of the percentage of women, ranging from 29.7% in 2014 to 39.6% in 2020. Is this enough? Is not enough? Maybe it's a question for the debate. But at least until 2020, the percentage was slightly increasing. When we take a deeper look and analyze this data, depending on the region, we can see that the percentage of women in national congresses in Asia was only 31%, in comparison to Europe, 42%, or South America, very similar to Asian, 32%. So, at least in my opinion, there is a clear room for improvement, regardless the place, and in particular in some areas. We also analyze the number of women elected as president of oncology societies. In 2016, only 10% of national oncology society had a woman as president, and that percentage was 27% in 2020. Once again, is this enough? Is not enough? How to change? Maybe are questions for the debate. And the third point that I would like to highlight is the gender gap in the area of research and papers. We know that in the area of oncology, women comprise only about a third of research grants PI. In terms of journal, in terms of paper, we can see also that female authors are significantly less likely to be the leaders of a study. It means that the percentage of first author is, maybe there is a plateau, at least in my opinion, in the 30 years analyzed in our last survey, while the senior author, the last author, the percentage is really low, less than 30%, regardless of the year. And this is quite relevant in terms of academic productivity and academic development. Another way of knowing the academic productivity is analyzing the age index, as you know. And in this slide, you can see that the age index, the median, is different in male and female. Once again, the age index in males were clearly superior in comparison to female. So it means that those manuscripts in which males are the corresponding author are significantly more cited. So once again, the academic productivity is different and there is a gender gap in academic productivity. So with this data in mind, what has been the effect of the pandemic? Because we are really worried, really concerned about the risk of losing the little that has been achieved so far. Because with the data I have already shown, we can analyze what happened in 2019, 2020, and maybe in 2021. For instance, and these papers are not focused on the oncology field and focusing in other fields, women published and are publishing less during the pandemic and also about the COVID pandemic. For instance, when comparing papers published in March and April 2019 and 2020, the number of male authors on preprint posted has grown faster than the number of female authors in that period of the year. This is in general, this is during the pandemic. But when we analyze also paper focused on COVID-19 from different perspectives, we can also say that women represent only a third of all authors, regardless of the position. And in fact, the percentage of women publishing about COVID-19 first or last author was 21, 29, and 26, very similar to the numbers we had in the analysis of the 5 top journals in the ESMO Women for Oncology monitoring study. So less than a third of authors were women. So with this in mind and concerned about the future, we decided to launch a survey focused on this topic in the oncology field. And the results were published last year in ESMO Open. As expected, because it's very common in all our studies, the participation of men in the oncology field in this kind of survey is, there is a room for improvement again. But taking into consideration the ones who answered the survey, we can say that both gender feel that COVID-19 affected in a negative way their professional career. But women had been less present on COVID advisory group, and in general, the impact was more negative in a deeper way for women. This unexpected stop due to the pandemic also impacted at that time, and my concern is about the future in women research. And according to our survey, more men declare having spent more time on science during the pandemic and post-confinement, post-lockdown, in comparison to women, probably because was accepted at that time, and I am not sure what is the reason, that women were the ones responsible for taking care about children, household activities, parents, so on, during the lockdown and in general during the pandemic. So this is not only about the impact on women's research activity in 2020 and maybe 21, but our concern is about the future. So, at the end of 2021, ESMO has a female president. As very well known, she is really active in this field. ESMO has a gender balanced elected executive board. ESMO has nearly 50% of female ESMO members. And when we analyze some segment of year, particularly young generation, maybe we have more female than men. ESMO has a dedicated award to recognize those who contributed to support the career of female, and also has, as I mentioned, a committee dedicated to gender balance. But as a consequence of that, we have more and more female invited speakers, at least at ESMO meetings. In 2020, 41% of invited speakers were female, but there is a lot that has to be done. So, and this is my last slide, Women for Oncology Committee must continue to monitoring the gender gap in oncology. And for this, to do that, we are planning new surveys. We want to continue advocating for gender balance because it's a high priority, or should be a high priority on the global agenda. And of course, for us, it's very relevant, and we want to be involved in exploring new ways of collaboration, particularly with national group, promoting networking, and of course, supporting each other. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
So thank you very much, Pilar. Indeed, it was a fantastic talk, and a lot of learning,
Yeah.
and we keep learning and keep moving step by step, so that the world will acquire what we mission for, a gender neutral environment someday. And yeah, in next few minutes, I'm having a few questions which I received from various participants all across. So this meeting is being attended by several participants all across nation, as well as from neighboring countries, and they are oncologists as well as they are budding oncologists, and a lot of women and also some men. So there are different kind of challenges, and from you, the Women for Oncology chair, people want to know that what in your opinion is the most important barrier for women oncologists progress, if you can enumerate. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Yoiti. I think that the barrier can be different depending of the area of the world. And this is why ESMO Women for Oncology is trying to collect information about different areas. And currently we have people coming from different areas of the world as part of our committee, because we want to be sure that we are aware of the culture differences and the things that can be influencing the challenge depending of the area. For instance, in my country, in Spain, I would say that for us, we have a sailing glass, and I am not sure how to break it. No, so although we have more and more women that are aware of this problem, probably we are fighting for this, for changing this, and all year. It means that we need young people committed with that. And maybe in my environment, young women and young men think that they have the same opportunity. So when women realize that it's not true, maybe there are 40s or even more. So we need to involve young people in order to change altogether. No? And we need more men involved in this matter. I am not sure we are going to really change a lot of things if we don't have a lot of men really committed with this situation. It's good for all of us having a lot of women as well as men in leadership roles. So we need the best, men or women, whatever.
Absolutely. So, yes, that's what gender neutrality essentially, and consciously and subconsciously, we should thrive for that, because we really want, as you very rightly said, what is best. So, irrespective of their gender. So, definitely, we wish there should be equal opportunities for both the gender. Now a very interesting question from young budding oncologist. What is the role of a powerful woman, a woman who really achieved what could be dream of some young oncologist in that particular position? What should be their role to facilitate, fellow women or young women colleagues, and also to establish gender neutrality?
Yeah, I could say that role model are really relevant. No, in some cases, if you can see that other women were able to achieve some goals, you can envision that you also can do it. So having role models is quite relevant. And at the same time, when you are in in a leadership position, at least is my point of view, you should do everything to help your young colleagues. No, as you know, sometimes in EPSMO we divide, we explain that it's not the same having a position of a sponsorship colleague that mentorship. No, when you are doing a mentorship activity, you are teaching, but when you are a sponsor, acting as a sponsor, you are saying no. When you receive an invitation, you decline in favor of a colleague that is your sponsorship colleague. So this kind of active activities are really key. So I think that when you are in a leadership position, your commitment should be that, no, to promote young colleagues.
Very well said. And I think that message should go a long way, that we should support each other. And, somebody has supported you. So, you are in that position, then it is our role to, give back to the society and other
Sure.
women colleagues, certainly. Now, in the same line, the question is regarding the mentorship, and especially the distant mentorship. So, ESMO is doing a lot of work under W4O also in this regard. People want to know that, because in the countries like ours, there is not very structured mentorship programs or
Yeah.
sponsorship for that matter. So, how to navigate that, and what is the role of distant mentor or distant sponsor?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that it's complicated. Not from from a practical point of view, no, how to best organize mentorship activity. And as you well know, in our committee we have talked about that several times. And our idea is to join the JOC Oncology, Young Oncology Committee, to share also with them, taking advantage of the program that they have already implemented, to navigate and to collaborate with them. Because uh, I only have within Women for Oncology the experience from the Greek group that provide a scholarship, promoting that one of the young colleagues was able to travel to England at that time to work with a very well recognized women in a specific field, and that was Susanna Banerjee as a mentorship experience. This kind of uh, activities are really difficult right now due to COVID. So we need to think about other mentorship activities, some virtual, but how to really organize is not well established. Having said so, if some of your colleagues have some idea, I'm happy to hear about some experience that we could maybe implement.
Thank you very much. So I think in the panel, few people will speak, and also later I will, pen down those thoughts and chains of those thoughts and communicate in the ESMO W40 when we will have our next meeting. So also people want to know about how we can globally collaborate. So we are doing a lot of efforts with ESMO W40. Likewise, the India wing, the ESMO with ESMO support, a lot of other nations, including our own, also we are building up a wheels and spoke kind of a pattern. So people want to hear on that. What should be
Yeah.
how we can enhance that.
Yeah, I think that India model is fantastic, and in fact, you were the first one that published the Indian experience, no, in the ESMO Open, because I think it's relevant to have figures, to have data, to have numbers that can be different depending on the country, but also probably with this in mind, we realize that there are other things that absolutely the same regardless of the country. So we need to reinforce the common things, and we are trying to organize every year a meeting with national representatives, with national committees, because there are different structures. There are countries in which these national activities are very well implemented, for instance in Italy, in Greek, maybe in Spain, also in India. In other countries they want to start but they don't know how to do it, and call us or send an email. So we are trying to have a common framework to work together, because we really think that most of the things that can be done should be done at a national level. So the international activities can help, but really the changes probably only will be really good if they are based on local and regional commitment. No? So this is why national activities are really relevant, and I think that India is doing really, really well. Thank you to your leadership.
Thank you very much, Pilar, for your generosity and appreciation. So, in the same direction, we are trying to collaborate with other SARC countries, and there are some representatives from different South Asian regions. They also join. They will be joining today's panel as well. So, I think this momentum will go on, and we gradually will make this really strong. Towards the end, last two questions about the current pandemic. So it has really touched everybody's life, and you very graciously shown the data wherein wherein it is clearly seen that gap is widened with the pandemic as well. So this is still continuing, and we are facing the third wave here in India, and a really difficult situation. We are working in hospitals with half of the strength almost, and then the dual responsibilities, as you know. So how to deal with? What is your crisp message in this regard?
I think we need to protect women time. I don't know why we really not accept it, because I understand as a woman why we have to accept the situation, and of course our family, our is quite relevant. But I don't know why as society we have to accept that we are different in terms of that. Because if all of us are professional, highly qualified, why is expected different from men and women in our days, regardless the culture? So for me, it was really shocking when I realized that also in our environment we have this widened gender gap, because it was not my experience in my house or with my friends, but this is the reason we did the survey. It's really sad to say that it's the same in the oncology field. So why society accept so easily that when things are difficult, the role of women had to be different? Why? We are so high qualified as our colleagues. So we need to look the way to protect time, because as I mentioned, it's not only about what happened, it's about the impact in the future career. Because this time the academic productivity and so on, we need to balance that, because otherwise in the future the gender gap will be even worse. No, so we need to find a way of that.
Absolutely. So I think that is a very, very important message and should go a long way, because it is impacting not only today our life but in future as well. So I think everybody should be aware of about that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the last question about the role of, although partially you answered this, but what is the role of men around us, especially those in authoritative position? Many, we see in different survey from different countries that it is there is much more possibility and probability that a man will lead the show in different positions.
Yeah.
So how they can improve the situation?
I think we need to invite them to be part of our committees, because I've been involved in many different type of women committees, and a national level, local level in my city even. And in some cases, the message is no, we should be only women because blah, 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 blah. I don't agree with this point of view. I think that if we invite smart colleagues, men colleagues, to be part of this, they can help us, because they have a different perspective, and we need to the men involved on that. For me, it's really sad when we launch survey and we have only a small percentage of men answering the question. This is why we try to involve in our committee, as you mentioned, men with a clear leadership position. And in fact, not only the former president, but also the next president of ESMO, that was the one we invited to write the editorial related to this paper. Both are really committed with this thing. So we need to find this kind of a smart guy that want to be part of this travel too.
So thank you so much, and there are endless questions, but time is limited. So I think this show must go on, and this continuity should not be interrupted by any means. So it's a pleasure and privilege to have you with us, Pilar, and we should be having much more and more such forums, so that this continuity should be established and should be moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yoiti. Congratulations for that, and I'll do my best for continue working with you in the meeting next Friday.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Dr. B.K. Smruti. She is a senior consultant medical oncologist and hemato-oncologist, Bombay Hospital in Lilavati Hospital, Mumbai, and Dr. Reena Nair, Head Department of Medical Oncology and Senior Consultant Clinical Hematology, Tata Medical Center, Kolkata. To invite the speaker and start the session. Over to you, chairpersons.
Good evening. Smruti, are you taking over or should I start?
Oh, please start.
Okay. So we are fortunate that Jyoti has put up a really nice thought for all of us women in India who work in oncology. And she intends to do things that maybe we did not do between Smruti and myself, but for the next generation of women oncologists, I see great hope as their numbers increase. The number of women speaking will increase and the number of women in PI positions will increase. Today we have the ESMO president with us, Professor Solange Peters. She is from the Lausanne University in Switzerland. And she is kind of known to everybody on the Women's Oncology Forum from ESMO and from all that we have heard about her from Jyoti as she made the group possible and feasible in India. Professor Peters did her MD medicine from the medical school at the University of Lausanne in 1998. That was followed by her joining the Microbiology Institute in the same university, from where she concluded her MD PhD in 2002, and thereafter has been involved in teaching and in patient care in medical oncology, especially in the region of thoracic malignancies. She has been actively involved in, and her interest is mainly in new biomarker discovery and their validation in preclinical as well as in the clinical settings. She is strongly involved and is interested in multimodality trial building, especially for the lung cancer in the area of non-small cell lung cancers. And her current research projects as a chair are focused on curative intent treatments of stage 3 lung cancers with combined immunotherapy for the treatment of non-small cell and small cell lung cancers and thymic malignancies. With that, I invite Professor Peters to give her lecture, which is entitled Importance of Global Collaboration to Mitigate the Challenges for Women in Oncology and the Role of Women in Oncology. Professor Peters, please.
It's my great pleasure to have some time today to discuss with you gender gap in oncology and maybe describe what was until today the European Society for Medical Oncology approach, the ESMO approach. First of all, and to start, it's quite important to keep in mind that gender equality belongs to what we call the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. As you can see here on point 5, it is considered to be one of the aims which will help us reaching a stable and balanced society globally. This is the ESMO Vision 2025, and I'd like you to remember about these 3 pillars, which should move with ESMO and with us in the next 5 years. First of all, ESMO has a mission to educate everywhere adequately. We have a mission to defend accessible, optimal cancer care, but more important than anything about the topic of gender gap, we have to cover diversity. We are one oncology community. And this is about the ESMO today. I think we are a good picture of what should be the Oncology Society tomorrow. With more than 25,000 members from more than 160 countries, we now have half of our members who are women. We cover now more than 40 specialties and specialists for more than 160 countries. And very importantly, half of our members are less than 40 years old. So how can we make sure that the chances to all are the same? Basically, recognizing diversity is probably the first thing to do and act on them. ESMO values diversity as today a leading principle. Diversity is sought through inclusion in all its forms: specialties, age, geographies, gender, and cultures. By serving an ever-growing base of doctors everywhere, ESMO strives for optimal cancer care to become accessible to as many cancer patients as possible. And last but not least, everything is about our global collaboration, paying attention to everything which makes us different, our local specificities. And this is maybe the picture we try to reflect in our Women for Oncology committee, where you can see that more and more, and I hope it's one of the aim of my presidency, you can see the diversity of our members. The mission of the ESMO Women for Oncology initiative is to raise awareness and promoting equal access to career development opportunities for women oncologists while providing a platform for networking with other women oncologists and national groups. So let's start basically with some concepts about gender gap. And this is the gender equality strategy from 18 to 23 from what we call the Council of Europe. So really the authority in Europe looking at basics in politics. And I'd like you to read this introduction. Even if progress is visible and the legal status of women in Europe has undoubtedly improved during recent decades, effective equality between women and men is far from being a reality. Gender gaps and structural barriers persist in many areas which limit women and men to their traditional roles and constrain women's opportunity to benefit from their fundamental rights. So really, it's a very strong statement, politically speaking, from one of the authority in politics. And this has been further, I would say, described at what we call the big economic place, the World Economic Forum, where was published in 2018, the Global Gender Gap Report. It's a wonderful report. I invite you to download it, which examines 4 index, which are 4 fundamental categories speaking about the commitment of people: economic participations and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. And you can see the index here speaking about the role of women as compared to men. So how much women can be involved as compared to men. And on the right-hand side, the global index taking the 4 parameters into account by continent. And as you can see, where the women have the less, I would say, presence is political empowerment with 22%, and of course, economic participation with 59%. And the calculation from our economists at that time was to publicly state that based on today's status and the trend observed over the past 12 years, it will now take 202 years to close the economic gap for women. So I think very important statements here. So let's look at healthcare. If you look at healthcare and keeping in mind this sustainable development goal, good health, well-being, and gender equality, in healthcare, 3% are CEOs in US, 6% are department chairs in US, 9% are division chief, and however, 3% serving as chief medical officers. However, 80% of the healthcare workforce are women. And this is the US picture. What is the global picture? You can find it in the WHO Health Workforce Working Paper in 2019, where they describe 70% of workers in the health and social sector being women, but unfortunately also describing that female health workers are paid approximately 28% less than males. Once you correct with occupation and working hours, we will see it later on, in the global level, at the global level, the gender pay gap is still 11%. And it is a call in that paper for transformative policies, addressing inequities and eliminating gender-based discrimination, removing barrier to full-time employment, and support access to professional development to women. So this is the WHO paper, right? Remember that Lancet has made a call in their own structure, but also globally and generally to fight against gender imbalance. I invite you to look at this call, but really describing the considerable and persistent gender gap in science and medicine in all the fields you can imagine: career advancement, remuneration, leadership opportunities, also evoking sexual harassment, care and domestic burdens and assessments. Gender bias is unjustified and unacceptable. We need to fix the system, not women. So a very important call, right? And of course, everything has gone worse, has been amplified by COVID-19 pandemic. Just a little, I would say, go around with you about the pay gap. So pay gap is a comparison between men's and women's typical earnings, right? You really do the ratio and the subtraction to look at the gap, the men minus the woman divided by the men. So very importantly, if you look at the US picture, right? If you look at the gap in the same, I would say, working discipline, the women earn 81 cents for $1 of a man. But if you control in terms of job qualification, so for the exact same job and exact same qualification, then you might compensate up to 98 cents. So what does it mean? It means that The problem is women are not granted the same positions as men. And this is true for any kind of position. There is a little gap if you control for the same job, which is unacceptable in pink, but in all of these positions, women are simply underrepresented. So really meaning that the problem is the qualification which is granted to women, creating a gender gap. So how do women manage the gendered norms of leadership? Do we have any problem with leadership? Probably yes, because a wealth of research have shown that female leaders, much more than men, have to face the need to be what we call warm and nice, what society traditionally expects for women, as well in parallel as being competent or tough. The problem is that these qualities are often seen as opposites. And you can see all the paradoxes it imposes to women and endangers women. For example, paradox one is demanding yet carrying. Paradox two, authoritative yet participative. Paradox three, advocating for themselves yet serving others. And paradox four, maintaining distance yet being approachable. So all of this paradox make that women can be sometimes considered as not doing everything we want from them. And sometimes they are accused not to be proactive enough because this mix of, I would say, psychological situation might be confusing. And there is this wonderful Harvard Business Review study where they compared in a large firm where the women were underrepresented in the upper management, they compared the behavior of men and women. And it's interesting to see the result. Men and women behave the same. They have the same number of contacts, spend the same amount of time with senior leaders, and allocate their time similarly. They also spend the same amount of time in online and face-to-face conversations. The conclusion of this wonderful study is this one. Our analysis suggests that the difference in promotion rates between men and women in this company was due not to their behavior, but to how they were treated. Gender inequality is due to bias, not differences in behavior. So going back to the paradox before, we know how to deal with the paradox because obviously at the end, we really manage to be as productive as men. But of course, everything is about stereotypes. And I like this other Harvard Business Review study trying to look at venture capitalists and the way they speak about the applicants for funding between male and female. And you can just read this wording, right? A male is young and promising. A woman is young, but inexperienced. I can take other example. A man is aggressive, but a really good entrepreneur. The woman is enthusiastic, but weak. So broadly, the research suggests that stereotyping through languages underpins the image of a man as a true entrepreneur while undermining the image of a woman. So don't forget about stereotypes. Last but not least, the burnout. We made this study about burnout in young oncologists. Remember, burnout is emotional exhaustion, feelings of cynicism, depersonalization, and a loss of purpose and meaning in work. It can occur at all stages of training and at all stages of career. And it is recognized more and more as an issue amongst healthcare professionals. And when we did our study on burnout on ESMO, we could do this multivariate analysis, trying to understand what are the factors which significantly impose a risk of being burnt out. As you can see, by the way, on the map, the level of burnout is amazingly high, unexpectedly high in this survey, which was focusing on oncologists under or equal to 40 years old, almost 600 of them. But when you look at this multivariate analysis, remember that what is one cause of burnout is the absence of good work-life balance, which usually is a topic which is brought in all of the surveys, mainly by women, because women have to have this paradox, this dual role in social life, in family life, and in professional life. So what can ESMO do? So first of all, and I remember the psychiatrist of my institution telling that describing is already part of the solution. We first need to create a committee, a structure which really stresses the problem and addresses the problem. And we created Women for Oncology to observe, report, inspire, and support women. So let's start as the first point, which is more about observe. We need to act as an international observatory to monitor and sensitize the oncology community. So we do it by constantly, and I would say consistently, describing the picture in Europe and around the world. How are the women represented in the oncology field? Doing a monitoring study that you repeat every year. Of course, we discuss the data in interactive talks. We discuss the data in forums, sometimes going beyond oncology. And we have to publish everything, our Facebook page, in order to make sure that the message is conveyed everywhere. Second point, we act as a career booster, supporting women in their professional development. And it's not because women are not as good as men, but we need to really help them to gain self-confidence. So we do mentorship sessions, we do forums, we do interactive talks. And remember, for young oncologists, we have leader generation programs, which are always having half women, really putting them in the context of a very strong training. And of course, last but not least, to go from the ESMO to your local politics, to your local realities. And we need to have a network undermining behind the ESMO Women for Oncology, which is a national network. And you see this national network is growing from India to Italy to Hong Kong, because the message translated into politics has to have a regional skeleton to make sure that the things can be acted on. Think about childcare, think about working hours, think about everything which is basically national politics. And that's very important to us. Of course, you have understood that one of the conclusions is that organizational change is hard. Diversity initiatives must be accompanied by action and accountability. You need deliverables in everything which is done. Diversity policies can backfire and fail without top-level active engagement, a strategy, and a budget. So it's not just a thought. It's really a project per se, which needs all the structure of a project, and often increase the burden on already burdened, meaning that unfortunately, this project has to be led by women who are already over busy, but we are doing that all together in order to reach our aim. And at the conclusion, I like this sentence from Mary Bird, fixing the system, not women. It's hard to lean in when the system slaps back. So Mary Bird was telling you can't easily fit women into a structure that is already coded as male. You have to change the structure. And with this, I thank you for your wonderful attention.
Thank you very much, Solange, for indeed, this was a fantastic talk as always, and the topic which is too close to my heart as well as yours. So, yes. So there were several questions which I received prior and which are coming to me. And in the interest of time, we can take few questions. But, so we will start, and later also I will communicate with you, and I will pass on the many queries and concerns of our women oncologists from India and neighboring countries. So yes. The first, interesting question, which two, three of my colleagues, they asked that, how you are a visionary, definitely, Solange, and you kind of pioneered this momentum, the Women for Oncology in the ESMO. So people want to know about your vision, your thought process, because when you recognized ESMO was not really that balanced as far as the gender, ratio, but now it is more. It is towards half of the members are women, and even the leadership role, every aspect. So how you did that?
Yeah. So we have to be careful. It's a little bit in my field. It's what we call smoking prevention policies. It's the same thing. You need always to keep an eye on that. So when I came, I wouldn't say that ESMO was an old boys club, but was close to be an old boys club, right? Meaning that the same people were giving roles to each other repetitively. without enlarging the group, and of course, without creating diversity. I even suspect that I entered the board because they needed a woman, and I was pretty nice in terms of polite and so on. So they decided to take me, ignoring that I would create all these kind of things. But what I mean by that is then you start to create diversity step by step. So it's one committee, two committees, and it's a repetitive work. So every time you have a meeting, a program, a webinar, a summit, you need to ask what is the proportion of women being in the committee, speakers, or even writing the article, and so on and so forth. So you have to repeat. Now, when I receive a program as president for, I don't know, for example, a preceptorship, I always receive the program plus the geography of all the speakers and the woman representation. And they perfectly know that if they don't come with 40, 45 women in terms of percentage, I will send it back. So, I mean, it's a repetitive process, and you need to insist. You need sometimes to be disliked because it breaks some of the projects of other people, but diversity is the center of everything. Basically, what I fear and why I say we need to pay attention to that is after COVID, I think many women will disappear because we couldn't move in science because we had to take care of the grandma and the family and the kids who were not going at school. So I think after COVID, we might go back to something like 30% women speakers at meetings. So we have to be very careful because apart from the pain of the horror of COVID itself, I think it has potentially degraded the position of women. Once ESMO has created diversity, then ESMO cannot do politics, meaning that I cannot come to France and say you need to create childcare facilities or you need to promote part-time job. So once ESMO has created this network, then everybody has to bring it to home. And that's also a huge effort. You have brought it to home, but it's not easy to bring the message home, right? So I think it's really a collaboration.
Absolutely. I think very well said and very well perceived. We have to be, stuck to our plan, and the goal is, still, there's miles to go before we sleep, I would say. So the efforts are, commendable from ESMO, from you, and the collaboration is also from, other national bodies. Yeah. So another question in the same line, that how can ESMO and other national, so international bodies and national bodies, what is their exact role? How they can, collaborate in the best possible manner to give the best advantage to the women oncologists? What is your thought on that?
I think it's bi-directional. I think what you can first provide as ESMO, because we have time and money to do that, is to provide the data, because you probably met that. But the first time you come telling there is an imbalance, there is a gap, the first reaction usually of men or community is to say, no, it's not true, or not really true, or not so important as you say. So ESMO be the observer, can perform the survey, the study, and give the picture, which is a scientific picture, irreproachable, right? So what ESMO can do is to set the scene for any other move. So second thing is we have some material, right? We can give slides, we can give material, we can offer some options. So what we can help also is to show the landscape of options that people might have to act on that. But then, as we said, then you have to take it home and to work on that yourself. On the other hand, other direction, ESMO has to identify the young oncologists, the women oncologists who are brilliant. Because if you look for them, you find them in GI, in breast, in thoracic, in sarcoma, you find them. And we need to bring them on the scene. So it's the other direction. We need to grab the ones which we can really bring on the scene. So it's two things, back home and back to ESMO. I think it's a kind of bilateral effort.
Absolutely. Again, I think you are spot on. And this should be, everybody should take this message, in a very big manner and try to follow as much as possible. On the similar line, people wanted to know that, powerful women, you are in a power position, and the similar kind of women, what should be their role once they achieved what many people look forward to help the fellow woman or budding oncologist or the women from other geographic areas?
Well, first of all, I think it's good to have women in my positions, because at the end you need to understand that it's sometimes probably by chance and by mentorship. I think identifying men who have the same consideration about I would say, carry regardless of gender is an important thing. But I would say it's probably good to be able to show that any woman can reach this kind of stage. But then I think wherever you are in my position, it's paying attention to things which is important. I always say, even in my country, the worst happens in little things, right? The little stereotypes which might happen every day, the little thing, the way people address you, the way people tell your name, the way people, so you have to constantly pay attention, very politely, of course, to anything which creates a situation where you feel like you are weaker than a man. There's no reason, right? You produce data, you treat patients. So at every little signal of feeling that you are weak, you should struggle why and fight against it. Because women can have anything they want. They cannot have everything, meaning that you cannot do everything well. You cannot be a mom, an organizer. But if you want to be a wonderful physician and scientist, you can be that. Never accept any remark or note that might make you doubt that, right? So I think it's a constant effort to inquire internally, right? Why do I sometimes feel weak or ridiculous or shy, or because there's no reason.
Right. So very well said. So in the same context, I also wanted to just quote here that, about the data, which you said was very, very important. So when we used to talk about this women for oncology or gender gap, etc., there were very little fraction of people who were really serious about it. People used to laugh and they take it as a joke and very lighter vein. But when we did this large survey from the ESMO, and we did that in India as well, and we produced that, and that scientific data. After that, many people, even if it was difficult for them to digest that, but they had to believe that these are the real facts and they exist, and people need to do something about it.
Absolutely.
So I think that is very good message you have given. Another thing people wanted to know about is that about the stereotyping, about the last sentences which you made. So this is day to day and everywhere, private practice, be it as an academic institute, women, they were made to feel that they are kind of inferior, or even if they are equally skillful, or even at times when they are more. And rather, it is also a perception, if they are more skillful, people try to dump them even more. So, and many people feel that, there is people gang against them, and there are at every level, and it's very difficult to circumvent. So what is your suggestion how to go about it? Because, again, as you know, that women in authoritative positions are less to support these, younger colleagues, or even people in their middle of their career. And those who are, they also do not want to, come into direct confrontation. So then, they feel lonely. And those situations, even people wanted to know how national or international societies can help them, and what should be the way forward.
So two things there. Probably you're right. The most difficult thing is stereotypes. We all use stereotypes, and we shouldn't feel innocent. We all use them in daily life, because if you use stereotypes, they make your life easier. Stereotypes are just short ways to reach a conclusion, right? And we all use stereotypes. Stereotypes that for example, a man cannot do two things at the same time. Women do not drive well. All these kind of things. We all use stereotypes, and we joke about stereotypes. So we shouldn't be so much, I would say, upset because there are still gender stereotypes, but we should not accept any stereotypes. You need to be conscious about the fact that they are everywhere. They are in the advertisement, when you see perfume, they are on the TV, they are in every word we use, they are in the tone of the email you receive from the pharma industry. So there are stereotypes everywhere. So very politely and very nicely, you need to correct the stereotypes. You don't know how many times per week I remind people about who I am, my title, what is my first name, what is my second name. My name is not Peter. I'm a woman. My first name is Solange. So you know what I mean? So, and you need to always kind of repeat, because no aggressiveness. We are always reproached to be aggressive. No aggressiveness, but just reminding people that there's no difference, and that this thing you just said is a stereotype. So that's a constant work, but by doing that, we will eliminate them, right? So second thing is feeling alone. That's a problem of women. That's a problem of minorities, right? When you are part of the minority, it's difficult to prove solidarity. When you know there's only one position for a woman, it's difficult to share your way with another woman. So when you are really a minority, you sometimes fight against the other members of the same minority groups. And this should never happen. Women do not support women. Usually women fight against women. They compete against the other women. And this will be a huge blockade in the advancement of women. So we need to create a group of women who support each other and really promote each other. So when I do a program, I put women. When I ask for an award, I put women, and so on and so forth. So that's really about being in this solidarity concept among women.
Great. So, so it's really nice. And towards the last question, because we are running short of time, questions will never end. So, you know, the people are asking that if something is happening which is kind of not perceived by a woman oncologist that it is good for them, whether it is a small event or a big event. Even people wanted to ask in the current context, at times there is sexual harassment at different levels, subtle level, very prominent level. So whom they reach if they are not finding, you know, any comfort or supporters in the near vicinity? Do international bodies like ESMO or national bodies, they can really help, and what should be done for that?
Yeah, it's interesting because these are the kinds of topics which should be addressed as a concept and not at the time somebody is already attacked or affected by such an event. So any company or any society should have a way to discuss what is any kind of harassment. It might be not only sexual, but harassment. So meaning you should have human resources or I would say similar structures which allow you to freely describe something which is illegal, because remember that everywhere in the world, harassment is not legal. So really, it's something which you should even check when you start being the boss of something. Do I have a structure that is adequate? If I would mismanage my staff, can they go somewhere? Because if somebody is sexually harassed, it's too late. It's too late because then you will build something unstable around a very important topic. So that's really something which it might be worth for our members to look at. What do they perceive as being the solid structure to be able to receive complaints in a credible way for all these kind of things? You know, sexual harassment is very fragile because, well, first of all, it's a shame to have to describe such a phenomenon. Most women feel like being ashamed and ridiculous to describe this kind of things. And second, their credibility is very often questioned when they come somewhere, right? More and more. And nowadays it starts again that the Me Too is questioned. People say it's exaggerated. No, it's not exaggerated. There was a time these kind of things were socially more or less accepted, and it's not accepted anymore. I even remember in my institution, a big professor was telling, if it's like that, I will stop to have students who are women because then they will complain. And I answered to him, if you feel like sometimes you are in the gray zone with women, it means you are in the black zone, right? You never should feel like you are in the gray zone. It means you are in the black. So behave correctly that you always feel in the white. It's not possible that you just imagine like that you might be reproached anything, because a behavior has to be impeccable. So it's really a very big topic. And, you know, we should do surveys, but it's difficult to do. But you really understand the frequency and the addressability of such complaints in our societies. I'm sure they're way more than we suspect.
So thank you very much, Solange. And, you know, I would love to be part of such momentum. And if we can do anytime such global efforts, so that really things would be better for everyone. Yeah. So with this note, I would end here, and I will send you many other questions, which you can answer later. And for here, again, thank you very much. It is really a boost for every one of us, for India, for our neighboring countries, that you have come here. You have spent your time for all of us, and it will be a great collaboration, which is already going. and which will go on. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peter Solong, for fantastic talk. I would request Dr. Pilar Garrido to join us in the next panel discussion as an expert. Over to you, Dr. Reena Nair.
So Jyoti, thanks for organizing a really interesting workshop, webinar, and for all the effort that you have put in the last 2 years to get this Women for Oncology going. And some of us are really fortunate to be a part of your group as founder members. We will now go on to the panel discussion, which will discuss Women for Oncology, the unique challenges and remedies from India. And of course, Jyoti will be the moderator and everybody knows her. The nice thing about this panel is that I see a lot of my old friends from Tata Memorial Hospital. And so to make things lighter today before the heated discussion start during the panel is to say that I'm really proud that a large number of women who can make noise today are actually from the Tata Memorial Hospital. And from the very inception of the Department of Medical Oncology. And we were kind of allowed to speak, we were allowed to talk, we were allowed to complain, and we were also helped in our careers to move up. And sometimes the credit can also go to the men in the department at that point of time for certain. And I'm sure the men in the department now also help the women, because I think the gender ratio in medical oncology in Tata Hospital has been good. And if you see the women outside in the country now in leading positions, many of them are actually from the same institute. So Jyoti, you have heavy job to do on your hands. Carry on.
So thank you very much, ma'am. And I must put this on record that Dr. Reena Nair is one of the pioneer, and for we definitely need always. And I'm very privileged to have her always to support the cause. So with this, I will, can you please call upon the panelists to take the stage and allow me to share the screen?
Sure, ma'am. Okay. So the panelists are Dr. Asima Lukman, Dr. Ramila Shilkar, Dr. Jyoti Wadhwa, Dr. Bhavna Parikh, Dr. Ritu Jain, Dr. Mansi Shah, Dr. Meenu Walia, Dr. Poonam Patil, Dr. Deepa Suzanne, Dr. Anjana Joel, Dr. Smita Kayal, Dr. Deepa Suzanne, Dr. Vindhya Vasini, Dr. Roshni Bhagwat, and Dr. Bhavna Siroi. Over to you, Dr. Jyoti Vajpayee.
Yeah, can I share my screen? Sorry, it is showing that you are sharing your screen. So can you stop sharing from your side? So welcome all the panelists on board, and we are having Dr. Solange, Dr. Pilar, Dr. Siupin Chu, and Dr. Jenny Singh as an experts for this panel. And you already get to know Dr. Solange Peters and Dr. Pilar Garrido from ESMO. So they really do not need an introduction. ESMO president and ESMO Women for Oncology chair. We have people from other countries who are representing the Women for Oncology Forum from their country. So the lead medical oncologist, Dr. Chu, who is from Singapore, Dr. Janice, who is from Hong Kong, and in the panel we are having Dr. Ramila Shilkar from Nepal, Dr. Asima Lokman from Pakistan, and several other Indian lead people who already have been introduced by Amay. So can I now share my screen?
Yes, ma'am, you can share now.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm just, Dr. Bajpayee, I'm just driving, so I'll put my video on once I'm back at home.
So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, now it is. Yes, it's better.
Yes. So thank you everyone, and welcome to this brainstorming panel, as Dr. Reena Nair said. And in next few minutes, we shall be discussing the questions. We'll take advices from our experts. So first, I would like to ask, each one of you from different countries. Let me start with Dr. Su Pinchu, who's a very dear friend and colleague, and we share, a lot of our thoughts towards women from oncology, which are similar. So, how is the gender climate at your country or your workplace, and what you see as far as the leadership is concerned?
So we're quite fortunate in Singapore in that gender is less of an issue. I think people look at look at you in terms of not based on gender, but based on your credibility and based on merit. But saying that, there are always still from the some people, some men in particular, who will always have, this, as what Solange said about stereotypes. I give you an example which we discussed in our chat group the last time, which is, for example, when a woman starts in the middle of career, she starts to have family and kids, and then there's a project that needs to be done, and then not that the male colleague thinks, the male boss thinks that she's less able, but it's like, oh yeah, she's gonna have family and kids, let's pass the project to someone who has more time to do it. She's probably not gonna be focused on work anymore. She's gonna be more focused on the new kid and family. And I always wonder, why does that need to be the case? We women are known to be able to multitask and juggle our time. If this is a project that is, just as an example, right? That is best suited to that individual. I don't see how having a family life should get in the way of the project, especially if there's adequate support. At the same time, I think that there's the other side of the coin, which is women ourselves sometimes we do not allow ourselves to step up and take the lead role. Sometimes it's lack of confidence. Sometimes we always say, no, I think family is more important. Let someone else do it. But how come that family husbands or fathers also part of the family? How come they don't think that way as well? I mean, I'm just starting the conversation going. But in general, I would say that in Singapore, we have many women in leadership roles, but we have done surveys before where there's still a gap. And that gap is shifting, but of course, there's still a lot of work to be done.
So thank you very much. And I think you have said everything, what was required and what is the fact. So now I'll move to Nepal. So Dr. Ramila, different kind of countries and different setup, different work culture. So what is your experience? What do you feel the workforce disparity in your country, and how women oncologists is perceived?
Thank you, Jyoti ma'am. So in Nepal, especially like in oncology, the numbers of women are like quite high in comparison to other disciplines in medicine. The radiation oncology was started by the woman, Dr. Tara Manandar. So the oncology services started from a woman. So that's a fortunate thing for Nepal. However, like when we see like medical oncology, we have a society for Nepalese Association of Medical Oncology. And if we see that the proportion of men to women oncologists is around 25% are only women, whereas the 75% are men. And in terms of like managerial roles, or in terms of head of departments in various academic institutions, especially in oncology, it's more like as in other parts, it's more men oriented. Men are more likely to be the heads and in managerial roles. For now, in my like the place where I'm working in my medical oncology department, I'm the only woman medical oncologist. Rest all are men, so there's a quite certain gender gap that exists, especially like in medical oncology and in surgical oncological fields. And I think there are in response to stereotypes as discussed by the experts in the previous session, it exists especially in countries like ours, where the culture is so that like women are supposed to stay at home and take care of the family. So like when it comes to major roles and especially managerial roles, people like hesitate to give you a lead role, thinking that maybe you will be more like affected by the family and you have to do your family roles. And it has been affected quite a lot during this COVID, as we all have experienced.
So we will discuss the COVID questions a bit later, but you are absolutely spot on, and you have mentioned few of the burning issues about the biases people have, and a medical oncologist or a woman oncologist, they are facing the their challenge with dual responsibilities, as well as the stereotyping in the minds of family people as well as the professional colleagues. So I will just, in the interest of time, I have to be a bit fast. So I will come again to you. I will move to Dr. Asima Lokman. And, this picture is showing the gender survey report in India. And I will ask my Indian colleague, Dr. Bhavna Parikh, to comment upon what is the situation in India, and then move to Dr. Asima Lokman for things in Pakistan.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti, for this opportunity. I think we have similar problems like what Dr. Ramila almost described. And I work in a different situation. I am an individual private practitioner oncologist. I'm not bound to one department or one institute. Initial phase of my practice, especially first 5 years and all, definitely I did have more problems. And what I have felt is that some of the male colleagues, they do not take female consultants seriously. And they sometimes feel that, okay, maybe you'll come, but whether you will be able to really take up the serious cases or serious references, or whether I should really give you references. And then they sort of observe you for some time. And once you have proven yourself, then things are a little bit smoother. No doubt about that part of the story. But yes, the things do remain. And sometimes also I have found male colleagues, ganging up, especially when you are alone. You are the only female oncologist in the department, because I work at 3-4 hospitals. So I have different departments and I have different colleagues in all the hospitals. So, but it does matter. There is no question about that. We cannot deny that fact, but we have to find our own ways to circumvent it. I ultimately feel that we have to be alert all the time and try and face this situation, continue doing good work. And when we continue doing good work, ultimately the appreciation comes.
Sure. So this is the Indian report. The same, survey was from ESMO. So things were quite similar in Europe or Asia or India. So this is something which is alarming, that women, although they make the majority of the workforce in medicine or in oncology, but when it comes to the leadership roles, they are very, very limited. And we heard Dr. Solange and Dr. Pilar on this. So I will, I will listen to them as well after Dr. Asima Lokman. So, Dr. Asima, your country's situation and what biases you face.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. As in my country, there are a lot of female oncologists, both the medical and radiation oncologists. And currently, I don't think that regarding professional speciality, there is no bias. But in terms of patients coming to male doctors and female preferring the female doctors, yes, our male colleagues do dominate. But however, in big university hospitals, the situation is that the patients, they have to go to the female doctors. And me being the first in South Punjab, I was the first female oncologist in South Punjab in Pakistan. I haven't faced any such bias. I was encouraged by my supervisor and my colleagues to work, and they were very supportive regarding my family life as well. And that's the reason I'm here today.
Right. So I think it's a mixed picture. Sometimes people face some difficulties. Sometimes they are supportive people, but what we understood that there are biases which we exist, and gradually we need to circumvent. So I will move to Dr. Roshni. You are from Dr. Roshni Bhagwat. You are from a different setup. So we have heard different countries' perspective. Dr. Bhavna Parikh from India, from a metropolitan city. Now I will move to Jabalpur. Dr. Roshni Bhagwat, you are working in a private sector in a small, comparatively middle or small city. What kind of challenges you face as far as the perception of patient, families, male colleagues, women colleagues? Do we have Dr. Roshni, or there is some technical issue? Then I will move this to Dr.
Can you hear me,
Yeah,
Jyoti?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So in a small city, there is an issue of a patriarchal attitude to women. As we see in India, the medical students, girls join more for becoming doctors, but as they grow up, at MD level, there is a very high attrition rate. In Jabalpur, when I joined, the attitude was that female professionals are less committed, so one does not take them seriously. Also, there is a gender stereotype at home. So you are expected to do more than a man at home because the man is the traditional breadwinner. As far as patients are concerned, once they see your professional attitude and commitment, I think women are as good as men, even in this smaller place.
Great to hear you. So I think what we understood that path is difficult. There are various types of perceptions, and generally it is a stereotyping which majority of our colleagues face wherever they are, and you need to validate yourself again and again. And this is a common issue. Even many other times when I talk to many people in different phases of their career, this is the general thing which come up, that men they are considered as natural leaders, while the women, if they are, people see them with a suspicion, with a doubt whether they will really perform, and many times it requires a validation. So I will move to our experts here. Dr. Janice saying your opinion, and then I will move to Solange and Pilar.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, thank you, Jyoti, for bringing us all together. We have actually, with the blessing of Solange and also Pilar, basically last year we did a focus group research interview with actually various groups, from junior fellows to consultants to senior, well-rounded women with families set up, and also our male colleagues. Some interesting conclusions being, I think it's interpretation of the conclusion that differs a bit from our observation, despite we are still feeling this kind of both conscious and unconscious bias. So at the end of the conclusion, especially those senior positions, be it female or male, was discussing, I think that's open for discussion, whether is it the choice of the women oncologists who opt to take more care of the families, rather than there's some structural issues. Of course, for us who are dedicated for women oncology, I think there are much gaps in so much that we should do. The conscious or unconscious bias being our colleagues, be it women or male, they think that it is our choice for those who actually left the system, or like what Supin has shared, that one of her colleagues actually give the good reason or excuse that, or because we need to take care of the family, so we need to pass the projects to someone else. Whether this is really their real option, their choice, or it's just very superficial that it was presented as a choice. Because in Asian culture, we try to be harmonious and diplomatic rather than speaking up about the bias. And something that's very interesting, which I still have a question mark when I discuss with our technical advisor, who is actually expert in gender research, is when we try to actually draw all the brains inside out throughout the research interviews, and to our interview with all the interviewees, none of them actually agree that there is bias. They think that, oh, actually, we have advanced so much. It was only with the group in the young fellows that they strongly actually echo what we say. Oh, yes, 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 we still feel the bias. We still the sort of like unconscious bias and conscious bias. So that's what's been happening in Hong Kong. At the moment, we have MEDOS and CLINONs, about 220 altogether, and we have about 70 women oncologists in Hong Kong. So still a small group. And yes, basically just echo all the findings. At top levels, it's still male dominant.
Very well said, Janice. And Solange, your views on whatever our colleagues are discussing here and otherwise too.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Not so much to add. I think most of the considerations about gender gap have been evoked. Maybe they impact your life to a variable extent depending where you are. But maybe they are, for me, importantly, speaking about the battle and the fights to come, I would say they might be probably according where you are, two levels of complexity. So the first one is society level, meaning having a family. That is the first blockage, the first wall we hit when we are a woman because of society, I would say, attitude that women take care of kids, or sometimes even childcare facilities do not exist or are not available. So it's a very practical issue that, of course, has to be solved first, because you cannot be a woman not having the choice. You can decide not to have kids, it's absolutely fine, but you need to have the choice. So that's maybe the first layer. But maybe the second chapter, which is more vicious, more stereotyped, more, I would say, degrading probably for women, what we call the ceiling, right, should never be forgotten about. And in a country like mine, lots of efforts have been done for childcare facilities, maternity leaves, and so on and so forth, even paternal leave. Now the father can leave for some weeks, but they have stopped their effort there. Meaning that still in my institution, only 20%, honestly, it's 15 of professors are women. So if you do everything around maternity and family okay for women, or even perfect, still you don't have women being professors. So the second chapter is probably way more difficult. It's about all these little things, the stereotypes. I call it degrading because it's all the things which affect the perception that the society has from women, capabilities, how smart we are, how agile we are in the environment, how fast we can be. You know, remember the Google echo chamber, how we can be also calculating, mathematics, scientific. So all these little things which still kind of tag women as being inferior. So I think that's probably when you speak about initiatives, we really need to change the perceptions that many societies have from women. And it can only come by a constant effort of publishing, showing, giving speeches, talks, and collaborating with men, even if you are the only one, but just showing that at the end you deliver as much work as men. But this will take more time, right? So the perfect environment is still to come, but it's really in the little things, in the daily business that we have to show that there's no difference in what we do.
Great. So I think we'll move to Pilar for your views as well on the discussion going on. Very, very interesting. So Pilar, are you there? Or meanwhile, we will ask our other colleagues, Dr. Anjana Joel, who is from an academic center, so in India. So your views, Anjana.
So I think in academics and generally,
and I'll request everyone to please on your camera so that I can easily see who are, because it's a big panel and it's difficult to recall who all are left.
So something I feel I kind of struggle with in academics, especially in India, is that there is no designated time for research. You are expected to do a lot of your clinical work, And then research also is expected to happen along with that. And then, so in my hospital, we are allowed to take things called study leave and sabbatical, where we're allowed to go, say, abroad and work for a year and go to a center of excellence. So for us, we look forward to those, like a year or two off, because those are welcome breaks, and maybe you can focus on a research job. The other issue, which I also face as an academic and as a mom of 2 children, is that, when you have male colleagues, it's so easy for them to just drop everything and travel to a conference, network every, at least once or twice a month. But for us, every weekend or even once a month to travel is a struggle. So virtual meetings now in the era of COVID are really a blessing for me. The other thing is in an academic setting, in the MDT, like somebody else mentioned, sometimes it is difficult to convince male colleagues who do not want to hear them that you are doing a good job, and then they will probably change. And the other thing that I've kind of noticed is that male colleagues need to be told often, or need to be constant, and sometimes it is not ingrained in them, so they don't consciously make an effort to recognize it. And so you need to sort of gently point it out to them. Sometimes you need to call out unfair, unreasonable, biased behavior, and that makes it kind of unpleasant for other people. And well, we can always raise our sons to be better to the next generation, I think. That's it.
So very well, especially the last point, I would like to underscore that definitely we need to raise the next generation much much more balanced and sensitive towards the gender equity and needs for that, as we'll move on. So now I will ask Dr. Deepa Suzanne. So Deepa is from TMH, very dear colleague, and now we will hear from her that what are the different kind of challenges a woman oncologist face.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah, definitely. Please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So distinguished delegates, my most respected teachers on the panel and off the panel, and dear colleagues, today I have just 5 points, which I will take exactly 5 minutes with your permission. My first point is a word of thanks, sincere thanks for hope. It's an honor, opportunity, privilege, and experience for me to be a part of this unique and special panel, a panel of women oncologists, for women oncologists, and by women oncologists. And my second point is, why am I here today in this panel? The very simple answer is because Jyoti ma'am invited me to it. And I'm definitely not here to fight with male colleagues here, because I know, we all know, that knowledge, attitude, behavior, they are not X or Y linked traits. But what I sincerely wish, hope, and pray for is a change of philosophy. What we have is an age-old seesaw philosophy, where if I have to go up, I have to push down my XY colleague. And in the seesaw philosophy, it's that we all go up together, irrespective of the number of X and Y chromosomes in us, as a team. As together, we all achieve more. And the broad 5 barriers which I could think of to this dream escalator project are the 5S. First is self, that is myself. Second is the seesaw colleagues. Third, superiors and subordinates. Fourth is a system. And fifth is a socio-cultural and family-created Lakshmana Rekhas. Fortunately, and with God's grace, I have had great colleagues, teachers, and mentors during my training at TMH, both male and female, colleagues at RCC, and great family support from my father, so to give me the right direction. So except for the first test, the last 4, fortunately, have been very positive for me. So I cannot think of any meaningful, clinically significant barrier in the other 4S. So I will concentrate only on the first S, that is from A to F. A for attitude and mindset. We all say that attitude and not just the aptitude will decide our altitude. But for the mindset, all throughout my training, I've focused on developing my skill set, and I've not bothered about the mindset. So I've always remained a fixed mindset. Whenever there is a feedback or criticism from a male colleague, I used to take it very personally. But gradually with time, I've realized that it's important to develop a growth mindset. And second is beliefs or limiting beliefs. The baby elephant philosophy. We all know that an elephant is tied to a pole with a very flimsy chain. We all wonder why that elephant is not using its might to destroy, to break the chain. That's because as a baby, it has been trained that it cannot break it. So I also had similar such limiting beliefs as a child. As a girl, that girl should be soft, should be docile, should remain silent, should be passive, should not be aggressive, and never say a no, and then you are a good girl. And as it was already said in the previous talk, that we should be demanding yet caring, and we should be authoritative yet participative. C for competence and confidence. We are like tea bags, and we understand our strength, our true strength, only when we are in the hot water. And D is for disability. It's not a true disability, but ever since I was a child and when I start speaking, for the first 5 minutes, everyone would be asking, what happened to your voice? Why is your voice like this? Is it like this since childhood? And have you been screaming continuously at home? And during my ENT posting, everyone would do an indirect laryngoscopy on me. So I became so conscious and that I stopped talking. I became an introvert, or rather I became antisocial. Then many of my good teachers, even my father, used to tell me that there's nothing wrong with your voice. Just as every mango in a mango tree is deliciously different, everyone has a different voice and you are just differently abled. Next is about the EQ and IQ balance. I used to be a true emotional fool. And every time somebody says something little, I used to start crying. I used to feel angry, but definitely not expressing it. And I had a big problem with saying no to anyone in life. Gradually, I learned that it's quite easy to be angry. But what is difficult is to learn how to be angry with the right person at the right time for the right purpose to the right degree. And gradually, I'm trying to learn that art of saying a no. Last but not the least is F, that is forgetting God's grace and God's blessings. We all have our share of ups and downs, peaks and valleys in life. And when we are faced with a challenge, we start questioning and forgetting God. And the solution I've found to it today in presenting challenging times is to write a gratitude diary where I write 10 good things that happened every day. And there is nothing impossible, as impossible itself says that I am possible, as it's always impossible. So these were the main 6 challenges which I faced as a self. Yes,
sure.
ma'am.
So thank you, Deepa, and you're always, we always enjoy listening to you right from your residency days. So in the interest of time, I have to move. Otherwise, we keep on listening to many other points from you. So now I will move to Jyoti Vadhva. We are having Dr. Jyoti Vadhva with us.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so please on your camera again, my request. So Jyoti, one quick point we want to hear from you. Do you ever face a situation where in a position or promotion, something, a rank is offered to much junior male colleague, ignoring the skill set or efficiency, whether you faced it or somebody else, you want to mention this and how it should be dealt with? Because many people personally, when they connect, they describe this to me. So I want to hear.
Yeah, sure. So I would agree, and if not personally, but in my surroundings, I would agree with you all, and we must all accept that there is, if not overt, but subtle gender bias. So if not for our own selves, but we have seen others, definitely experiencing it once in a while. One viewpoint that I wanted to make, after listening to others before me, and a different viewpoint that I'm sure the younger oncologists would relate with more, is that, your seniors often know and recognize that being a woman, you are more sincere, hardworking, and dependable. And therefore, in your, when you are young in your professional growth, you may be, given important assignments which warrant more time and dedication and hard work. But ultimately, you may not have got the entire or full credit for that, maybe with a publication or presentation or, acknowledgement. So that's something that somebody could face as a woman oncologist in the beginning of their career. So this was something different that I thought I'll bring forth. The other thing is that, we as women oncologists are often multitasking. We are trying to, better ourselves as oncologists, trying to be a better mom, better wife, better daughter, and as in teaching institutions, as better teachers also. So we should, I think, take pride in that, and not, suffer from early burnout or physical exhaustion or mental or emotional drain. So we need to, recognize these points and, turn them into our strength. Because it's very important to be aware of the problems so that we can, solve them. So that's the viewpoint on the peculiar challenges that, we face.
Sure. So moving ahead, and I would ask now this question to Dr. Mansi Shah. Dr. Mansi, you are there? Or Dr. Meenu Walia, I have just seen Dr. Meenu. I haven't asked any question from you so far. Or I'll shift to Dr. Poonam Patil while those people are. Sorry. So Dr. Meenu and then Dr. Poonam. So Dr. Meenu, your take on the stereotyping. Dr. Solange also mentioned in her talk, and we see often that there is a general perception, be it in a family or in professional world, that women should be like this and men should be like this. For example, men are generally perceived as natural leaders, skillful, confident, and if they are very affirmative, it is considered, oh, this is a skillful man, that's why this is an attitude. However, if the similar kind of firm attitude is from a woman, it is considered she is very aggressive. And so why this kind of different perception for a similar kind of behavior? I want to hear from you.
First of all, before beginning, Jyoti, I must compliment. I'm glad you took up this subject, and that too a very, very important topic and need of the hour. And it's sad, but it's true that we all are. I hope my voice is clear. I was actually
yeah, it's clear. Yeah, go ahead.
It's sad, but it's true that we all stereotype. We all try to label the genders, whether it is the XX chromosome or the XY chromosome. And I must admit that we women also, to a lot of extent, are party to it. I mean, let's be frank about it. For example, if I have to, I do talk about the gender biases. I do talk about that whenever the work-life balance is to be maintained, I'm at a disadvantage. I have a family to look after, and all these kind of things. The promotions and workplace. But what is also important is when I am the person who is recruiting a new fresh person or a younger person, a junior under me, then am I biased or not? And the fact is that I am also biased. So if I am recruiting a young girl, a junior doctor under me who has just got married, I'll be at the back of my mind, I will start thinking about, yes, probably tomorrow she will go for a maternity leave, and then I will have to go do without her and all these, and probably she will have a family to look after. So we also are in fact a party to it, and a high time, yes, we also need to change. We also need to have those changes engraved and start. Not only we expect from the society, but we women also should come out as the first supporters. I mean, I think there was a question earlier from your side about ganging. But most of the time, if you see, it is not the men who are so biased, but it is the women also who are biased against the other women. So that is also we need to understand.
Very
And
well
yes,
said. And I think, this we must, even in the previous speaker's talk, we noticed, and this is a day-to-day situation. So I would say, yes, a woman who is rising a ladder, who wants to rise a ladder, she generally faces both kind of biases, the biases from the male colleagues as well as from a woman colleague. So, something needs to be done. And I'm not saying that, all men are at fault. There are many, many men who are supportive as well. So there has to be some balance which needs to be established. So that is it. I will quickly go to Dr. Poonam, and in the interest of time, I request everyone to be very crisp. So, Dr.
Yeah,
Poonam, why this is stereotyping? Why women should be always nice, and this nice actually meaning in inverted commas submissive. They should not be authoritative. An authoritative woman is not perceived nicely. This is a perception from many women, which I know, which I receive feedback from.
Yes, so as Dr. Meenu rightly said, I think we women have also brought it upon us. And we take pride in saying that we are multitasking, we are homemakers, we are doing our job. I'm getting up in the morning at 4 o'clock, preparing lunch for the family and breakfast for the family, then going to work, coming back in the evening by 6:37, preparing dinner, and then going off to sleep by 10:30. We take pride in that. But I think that is what has brought on the problem on women as well, that we have to see how we can delegate the work. When we talk of work delegation in the hospital, the same way we have to delegate work in the house also. So this, I think, the multitasking that we are doing, though it is a skillful job, because everybody cannot do it, but I think we have to change our attitude. Why should we be the only one who have to look after the family? Family is for everybody. Home is for everybody. Hospital is for everybody.
Absolutely. So I think these conscious as well as subconscious biases towards ourselves, we need to correct, and also society needs to take these corrective actions. So it is not a woman's primary responsibility to do all those work at home. It is equal responsibility, and it is not only linguistically equal responsibility, because many times we hear from many people who come forward and say this, but actually there are subconscious biases which you always feel either in an overt way or more commonly in a subtle manner. So this is at existing at home, this is existing at workplace as well. So from we will move from here, and Mansi Shah has messaged me that she is speaking, but we are not able to hear for some technical reasons. So now we have with us Dr. Smita Kayal. Dr. Smita, your point on this, and then we will again move to Dr. Pilar and Dr. Solange to know their viewpoints on the discussion about the stereotyping, how to navigate, and how to say no. So that is also very, very important. Do we have? Yeah, Smita, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jyoti, for this invitation in the forum. Most of the issues have already been discussed.
I'm asking you the COVID issue, that's why.
Okay.
How COVID has impacted. So there are some studies also I'm showing on the screen. And what is your perception? Does such pandemic, so COVID is one of the example. I mean to say that some natural, catastrophes or some other issues, how they, adversely impact the fairer gender. Why it should be?
So fortunately, I have not come across the specific gender bias with relation to COVID at my workplace, because the COVID has impacted everybody. And as I am a single woman, I do not manage family. I've been able to contribute to the work equally. So with COVID related, it has not been a major impact on work or a personal life in terms of professional work also.
Sure. So Solange, can we hear your views on this? Because this pandemic is, is actually affecting everyone. But we have seen in our survey, which we have done from Women from Oncology, ESMO, that it has widened the gender gap. And you very wisely said that we may endanger that women, they may disappear from the major meetings, and we have to do something for this.
Yeah, it's interesting because I must say the COVID impact is not only the woman gap, which is worsened, but we know that any crisis as soon as it is something, I would say, significant for the general population, will trigger all inequalities, all pre-existing inequalities. And the gender, I would say, equality fight, or I would say concern, is something which is fragile. The reason why we speak today, it's small advances over time, acquired really reasonably without any susceptibility. So something which is maybe the damage of these triggered inequalities, right? So the risk when you move, like in this chapter, slowly and delicately in order not to be perceived wrongly, right? And we just move with science, we move with showing our capabilities in producing, discussing, being doctors. So as soon as a crisis like that happened, not only my 2 chapters crash, but the 2 of them crash. What I mean is, first of all, we lose our ability to spend time on research and to fight against the ceiling and the stereotypes. But the second thing is we go back to the family, because suddenly the society paradigm of women taking care of the kids who cannot go to school, for example, during lockdown, but also of the family at large, the grandma, the cousin, the aunts, comes back running, right? So no science and family roles being to be covered again, right? So that's really what we will have to go again from, right? We will have stepped back somehow. But I agree with the colleague before, going back or trying to find concrete advances. It might be about trying to redefine, redistribute our organization. It can be our husband or partner. I'm not married, for example, but it can be a partner, husband, or it can be some family members helping you, but you need to potentially put in place something which is more solid, because that's what we know now. When it's fragile, it crashes, right? And it crashed during COVID. So we will have to make an additional effort.
So very well said. When it is fragile, it is bound to crash. So we need to consolidate it in a manner that it should not be in the similar situation what we faced in this pandemic. So we have to make ourselves more strong mentally and as a system together. I will move to Dr. Supinchu on this. Your experience on stereotyping.
Oh, me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think stereotypes exist all over the world. It's not just with gender bias, but with obviously with every other stereotype related to ethnicity and so on. If you, I think biases exist and always starts with us. So, I mean, we've talked about this, and I don't want to repeat things that's already mentioned by you, lovely ladies. I really thank the ladies here for sharing from the heart. But I would, rather than to answer your question, Jyoti, I was thinking about, I had some thoughts about this whole topic and what we can do about it as women. And I think it starts with a few things. Starts with us first, that we have to believe in ourselves as women, as credible women in society, in oncology. The second thing we could do, what can we do as self, is to reach out and be mentors to our female colleagues, our junior colleagues, and be models for them to replicate. I've always talked about this, about the lack of female models, role models in oncology in particular. And then as a society, as women in oncology, I think we can be kinder to each other. As mentioned by many of the doctors here, how women are biased towards each other. I think if we are a bit kinder to each other, a bit more understanding about each other's struggles, and working work towards working with each other, than trying to fight with each other. I think that's a start. And then at the international level, obviously, which is what ESMO Women for Oncology is trying to do, there are a lot of similarities as well as differences between all our different countries and the challenges we face. But we should try and band together to see what we can do about the bits that are similar and how we can improve our lot, basically. Yeah.
Sure. So now I'll move on to Dr. Bhavna Sirohi. So Bhavna, you're there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi,
Yeah.
Jyoti. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. So Bhavna is working in a different setup in a big corporate hospital, and I really want to hear you, Bhavna, that what is your experience regarding a perception of a woman colleague or senior by your junior male colleagues, or other staff members, even how they take listening from you, whether you feel a subtle bias in that, or what is your perception?
So thank you, Jyoti, for organizing this session. It's very pivotal, actually. And for me, I think having spent almost 2 decades in London and back in India, so I've seen it from both sides. And I come from a state in India where, you know, female infanticide is there. The girls are married before they turn 18. And so I feel I have fought since I was probably in my teens to become a doctor, and then, you know, and then gone through the various rungs of ladder of training and everything. So the scenario is the same in global oncology as well. There is the old boys network in the West, and, you know, similarly we have the same kind of network in low and middle income group countries as well. So I feel that, you know, there are a lot of challenges and problems which all the earlier speakers and panelists have elaborated it very nicely. I feel that I think we have to look beyond it and come up with solutions. Working in a corporate sector, I've been lucky and blessed that I've had amazing mentors, both male and female, actually, at Tata Hospital and then at Royal Marsden, and who have really mentored me. So I think as women oncologists, because you, me, and a lot of us here on the panel are in key leadership positions. I am in a key leadership position in a corporate sector. So as leaders, I think we have to amplify the voices of women and put women on the table in leadership roles. So when I organize a meeting, I had a huge argument with one of my male colleagues because I wanted to make sure that the panelists or the speakers were 50-50, 50% women and 50% male. So it was a challenge because you had to discuss with your colleagues, but, you know, you can make it happen. And yes, you are labeled difficult, you are labeled aggressive, but I think we have the position we've reached with a lot of effort and fighting as well, I would say. So I think this is something we should do, and it applies to publications as well, in both in academics, research, and education, where we have to put women on the table. And I think this is happening in India. And people like you, Kumar, Sudeep, I mean, amazing leadership in ISMPO, which is actually truly doing it by getting more people on the table. I think this is what, so as far as juniors or seniors are concerned in the corporate world, I think the whole dynamics is changing. We have more women leaders, and you can see that in both in South and North India. A lot of my colleagues have said, you know, North India and South India also, there's a huge difference. I won't get into it because it'll take a lot of time, because of the dynamics and the patriarchal and the cultural nuances that we have in India. So maybe some other time we'll talk about it. So I think I would just say that, you know, as women leaders, we ourselves, it's our responsibility to make sure that, you know, we change the climate in India.
Sure. So thank you very much, Bhavna. And yes, happy fighting. So we have to, you know, we have to pitch in wherever there is, you know, some gender bias, be it overt or be it subconscious. I will move to Dr. Vasini quickly, and then if Dr. Pilar, we again have Dr. Pilar, because we lost her in between. So if she is there, then we will hear her views on the discussion going on. So Dr. Vindhya Vasini. Or Dr. Mansi, can you connect now? I don't want to miss on anybody who is on the panel. Otherwise, we'll go back to the people whom I already discussed. Okay. So, you know, whenever you are able to join or connect, please on your camera so that I can identify. Now, expectation towards the very last part of our panel in the interest of time. So, expectation from international national societies. We are having none other than Dr. Solange Peters with us and Dr. Pilar Jeridoviz, who is, you know, they can really make some differences. So what are the expectations from different countries? Ramila, you start. What kind of support you feel that it should be from the international societies?
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. I think like we cannot change this gender gap and equality in just few days. But I think, like we are doing multitasking, we are doing a lot of hard work. But if we get something like, if we feel that somebody is in our back, and just for an example, I got connected with Dr. Bhavna, and I was a part of multidisciplinary tumor board, and I got connected with Dr. Jyoti, and then like we have now, I presented in one of the recent conferences, and now I am invited as a panelist. So even this small sort of, appreciations really give us a lot of motivation, it's like hard work we are doing night and day, juggling between family and work. So I think like if we get some motivation from national and international sectors, it will be a very, very
okay.
Point to go on.
So I'm really sorry to interrupt in between, because I have to really move fast in the interest of time. So I get your point that we have to create space, and we want from societies that we need to see where we can create a space for a women oncologists. And Dr. Asima, one very quick 30 seconds remark from you. What do you want from?
I would suggest the distant mentorship should be strengthened.
Very important.
We need mentors who can guide us for the leadership roles and progress further and share their experiences. We should make a forum for that.
Right. So distant mentorship and distant sponsorship are very, very important. Dr. Solange, you want to comment upon? I think in the countries like ours where there no structured mentorship or sponsorship program, I think it's very meaningful. And we are already, doing efforts from our W4O team in ESMO. So do you want to comment upon that?
Yes, thanks a lot. I think just very shortly, we need your help there, because building mentorship programs is very difficult. It's maybe what we struggle with in ESMO since a while, not only women, also young oncologists, right? How can you efficiently follow someone, not only giving once an advice which is lost somewhere, but follow someone being efficient, promoting him or her. So you need to find a way to help us defining it, and you need to find the good mentor, or we will even call him sponsor, because he has to help you. But in a way, the way we build mentorship programs, sponsorship programs, we will need maybe the national societies to help us to know what is useful for you. English speaking, for example, regional, international, US, UK, Switzerland. So we need to know how we can really help, because I think the needs, if they are better defined, can be reached in terms of, at the end, deliverables, right? So it's really something, I must say, which remains to me partially a question mark, because every environment has different needs, right?
Sure. Dr. Siupin, again, I will move on to you for a very, important issue. Briefly, Dr. Solange discussed at the time of her talk about the current very burning issue of sexual harassment. So this is, at a subtle level, it is an overt level also. What do you think the current situation is, and your thoughts on that?
Obviously, we all know that it's an issue. It still exists. And I think that we had this discussion, Jyoti. I think it makes sense for us to get some data on this issue. I'm all for doing a survey if it's possible, with working with the right people. I don't know whether ESMO has someone who is expertise in this area, to look at sexual harassment in our medical field, especially in oncology, because I think we might find things that we never knew, and we might find some data that might surprise us, because it's an issue that obviously people don't like to talk about. Yeah.
Sure. So I think,
but it's a very touchy topic, though.
Absolutely. Janice, we'll move on to you for any other issues you feel important for today's discussion, and we have not discussed.
Just to add, thank you, Jyoti. I think just to add a little note, I think especially the verbal sexual harassment, just to echo Zibin, sometimes it's actually very tangential and very subtle. I think it would be nice if we could study that further. I think we have covered quite a lot in the past hour, especially with Lance's sharing and also inspiration and sharing of different perspectives. I think most importantly, it's I think education is very important. Whether we can incorporate working with our male and female colleagues even back in downstreams for medical education. I remember when I was actually serving as a vice president for the Hong Kong Women's Medical Association, and we attended the International Women's Association. We actually visited the Yiwa University in Korea. It's a female medical school, but there is compulsory curriculum that they need to be taught how to deal with their male colleagues. I think it shouldn't be just one side. Perhaps it should be both ways. So if we could have some humanities program under the umbrella of humanities program, especially psychology, learning about the psychology of male and female related to biology, I think that would be very important, especially some cultural issues as well, because different ethnic culture are unique, and there are some conscious and unconscious bias just uniquely related to that particular group. So I think that might also give us extra power as we would love to enhance or change the structure in any of this system.
So very important point, I think, and the difference, the psychology is different, the biology is different, and for a similar kind of situations, even if there are a woman and a man who are same or having same skill set, they are same educated, they are same position, then also the reactions may differ because of the difference in their psychology, biology, or the cultural differences. So this is an important point, and we need to, really train ourselves and society for that. Dr. Reena and Dr. Smriti, I want to hear from you, and the last word from Solange, and then we will conclude. So, Dr. Smriti.
Yeah, thanks, Jyoti, for inviting us to this session, and it has brought out very important issues. I must say that Dr. Reena and myself, as Reena already alluded to, we began our medical oncology careers almost at the same time in Tata Memorial Hospital. And I must bring out that we were fortunate that we did not face many of the challenges that you have discussed today. We should be honest about that. And in fact, our teachers and mentors like Dr. Shetty and Dr. Advani were always very supportive and encouraging. And fortunately, we have not faced any gender bias in our careers. And now I'm in a private setup. And I do find that, of course, you need to be a little more perseverant to be recognized, rather than your male colleagues. You need to persevere a bit more. You need to be a little better off in your knowledge to actually make your presence felt. But this gender bias is on the it's coming down, and I think times are improving. And with this sort of issues being discussed openly, and I think it would mean that in the future, this gender bias may altogether disappear and we would be on equal terms.
Sure. Dr. Reena, your thoughts on? I think Dr. Reena is also facing some connection issues. She's just...
Jyoti, can I just take a few seconds?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So regarding this only last issue of sexual harassment, it is more subtle most of the times rather than obvious. But I have actually, I know about one of my resident doctors who had this problem. And what she told me when she met me, she said, I don't know whom to go to and complain. So I think that is where the role of either women support team in the hospitals or sexual harassment cell in the hospital, I think it is need of an hour.
Sure, that's an important point, and many institutions, they are taking care about this important issue, and I think the problem is global, and with the Me Too movement, it is becoming even more recognized and more on surface. Solange, your last few words, and then I will conclude.
Thanks a lot. My last few words will be on this topic of sexual harassment, because it's, for me, a pretty new chapter, right? Across all services, we've been describing that probably it's a very hot topic, but we haven't been inquiring about the details and the reality everywhere we are as women. So what I would say is, besides the work we do for Women for Oncology, I think the sexual harassment it's part of, but it's a new chapter. And I think we should follow the same path. First of all, like it was told before, we need to fix definitions. Where does the sexual harassment start and when does it end? Remember how it was difficult to define what harassment, moral harassment could be. So sexual harassment needs a definition that we will use to fix the beginning and the end of sexual harassment. Then we will have to do, like for gender gap, to describe. And this is going to be tricky. No, we have no one in ESMO being specialized in that. We need to find somebody who might be a psychologist or a psychiatrist, somebody really skilled in social management and communication management to help us doing a survey in India, in Switzerland, in France, and as ESMO to describe the picture. And only once we will have done it, a bit like we did for gender gap, we'll have to propose solutions, right? It has probably a lot of granularity, which might be very disgusting, but we don't know about. So I think it's an effort to start. And if we can have one aim for this last COVID year, I hope it might be to start that, right?
So thank you very much. I think it was indeed wonderful and very intense discussion. I think it should never end, but in the interest of time, we have to move, and we will continue to continue this momentum in whatever best possible manner. And here I would conclude with few of the quotes which I like. And it is time that we all see gender as a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing ideals. Next time you are about to call a little girl bossy, say instead she has executive leadership skills, and I really mean it. We have to make our next generation much more cautious about about the women, men, and their stereotyping. Cultures does not make people; people make culture. If it is true that the full humanity of women is not our culture, then we can and we must make it our culture. And men are from earth, women are also from earth, so deal with it. And we cannot just get away by saying that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, so they are different and they have to deal differently. I think it is high time that people should perceive that there is a need of gender equity. It is not an issue of a woman, but it is a issue of human. Thank you very much.